We are talking 2025 NFL Draft on the Ourlads Football Network, Ourlads Football YouTube channel. And we are going live as we get an opportunity to recap the draft, our instant reaction video. How's it going, Hayden?
Doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you on. It's a Sunday. I know there's a lot of people in the industry, including ourselves, that are pretty wiped out after a very busy month and, of course, a very busy several days. Of course, this is one of those situations, too, where, we're trying to, in less than 24 hours, come up with some sort of reaction as best we can. And, so it's sort of like you do in the movies when you're going out there and you're trying to get actors to play a certain role. I went out and I asked Dave Syvertson, "Hey, Dave, would you like to do this?" And he turned me down. And he turned me down because, well, he's a professional scout and he can't possibly come up with the type of information that I would like him to in such a short period of time. Of course, I didn't even ask John because I know he probably would have had that laugh that you see. That I don't know if you've noticed the thumbnail I put together with John's laugh. He's got like an evil-looking laugh. I have a feeling he would have laughed me off the call, so I didn't even ask John. But I figured, Hayden, we don't do enough stuff together, Hayden, and I figured I could get you on, even though I'm not pinning you down to grades or anything like that. But I figured this is a good opportunity for you and us to talk a little football.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I had a chance to watch every single pick over the weekend, watched all 16, 17 odd hours of the draft. So I feel like I'm pretty ready to go. I won't have a very detailed opinion on every single pick in the draft as it happened less than 24 hours ago, but I am going to give an opinion just on at least on one or two players for each and every team.
That's all I can ask. And that's what we want to do here. So we give the viewers here on our channel as good as information as we can give them, as fast as we can, just such just so close to the end of the draft. And again, like I said, I know it's not exactly going to be our final word on the draft, but it is our first. We also want to remind everybody that even though the draft is over, I believe these are running out from what I hear. There's not many of these available. We're almost sold out for the hard copy, but if you want the hard copy, you can still order it. We have a link in the description once the video is over, and it's going to be available on demand. Of course, just go to the ourlads.com website. You can do that. And don't forget, if you want, even though these hard copies are slowly going away, you can just order a PDF version via email, and you can have it right there in your inbox within a matter of minutes. So check it out at ourlads.com. And let me go ahead and get ready, because I know we have we have 32 teams to cover, several different topics to cover. Check out here, actually. This is exactly where you want to order the Ourlads Draft Guide, right here on the website. So you just come over here and you can order it. And as you can see, talked a little bit about the limited supply of hard copy available. But let's go into this, Hayden, and start in alphabetical order. And we'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. This is actually, I had 8 teams that I considered A+ type of drafts in my mind. And Arizona is one of those 8 teams. I love the fact that they can get Walter Nolan at 16 and then come back and get a player that, if he is healthy, and that's the big question mark, but if he is healthy, and even if he goes under the knife for a year, all right, so be it. But it comes back and is the player that we all think he's capable of being, then getting Will Johnson at 47, I think is the bargain of all bargains. I like the rest of their picks as well. You get a corner in Denzel Burke, who was considered one of the best corners in college football for several years. So in all, I thought Arizona did a really, really good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% with you. Being able to get a value pick like Will Johnson in the middle of the second round is rather interesting. I'm guessing for sure that's going to be because of some medicals that we're not always, as the fans, at least have access to, because it's certainly not the play. He is certainly one of those guys that should have been in the first round discussion. Was a little surprised that he didn't end up going in the first round. So heck of a steal for Arizona in the second.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, you're talking about you added Will Johnson and Denzel Burke to that secondary. So they must be feeling really good about themselves. And I got to imagine the fans are pretty stoked too about having those two kids among, of course, several others like again, that Nolan is a top 10 talent. I don't think there's any question about that. So Arizona on defense really did a great job. Okay, Atlanta's next, and Atlanta, I thought they were okay. I thought everything, overall, I think they had a pretty good draft. A lot of it's going to depend on Jalen Walker, of course, your top pick. He's somebody that still we don't know what the player is going to be at the next level. But then they came back and traded back in to get another edge rusher. So everybody knew the Falcons needed edge rushing. So what did they do? They doubled down on the edge rushing with both Walker and Pierce. They also get one of the best safeties in the class in Watts. They get a really good safety as well in Bowman. So they double up in two different positions on defense and also get, a pretty decent value pick with Jack Nelson in round 7.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize Jalen Walker, played off-ball linebacker, and as you talked about, can be potentially utilized as a pretty special pass rusher as well. I was really interested in the James Pierce pick, trading back up into the first round, because I'm sure I saw a lot of people noticed it on Thursday night. They had to trade away a future first-round pick to actually go up to get James Pierce. And I'm not saying anything about what's going to happen with the Atlanta Falcons next year, but, you're a couple injuries away from potentially that pick being, in the top 10. So it's going to be interesting to see where that pick falls next year. But I agree. I thought they had a pretty solid draft overall. I thought it was interesting. They ended up doubling down on the safeties. I would guess they're going to utilize Xavier Watts as a safety on the back end, and probably going to have Billy Bowman move more towards like that nickel position. I know they currently have D. Alford there right now, but someone that could compete with him for the job. And then both of them can play alongside Jesse Bates, who's also going to be there on the back end as well. So solid draft overall, I thought.
Yeah, well, look, that was another big issue there was nickel and Tucker, our depth chart guru, placed Bowman right at nickel. By the way, he also placed, and we're going to talk about this as we go through. Matter of fact, just so you know, too, Hayden, it's up to you as we go through each team. Even though the draft, obviously, there are college signings that we know of right now are not going to be listed with their draft picks. As we go through each team, if you have a player or two on those teams that you want to mention who was just signed, by all means, talk about it. Because right here, for them to get Kobe Bryant too after the draft, I thought it was pretty impressive. So I think they did a pretty good job overall. And there were several players, including Kobe Bryant, that ended up, and even Verdon. We didn't even mention Verdon, another player that could have easily been drafted. So they did a really good job in the secondary and on defense overall. So.
Absolutely, for sure. I was shocked that Kobe Bryant did not get drafted. That is such a value pick for the Falcons as a UDFA. And then you had mentioned Verdon as well. He's a candidate to potentially also move down to linebacker and give them some depth there as well. They'll probably test around and see if he's more of a linebacker, more of a safety. But when I was watching him on film, I thought this guy could be a pretty solid linebacker at the next level.
Okay, the Baltimore Ravens, big surprise. They're one of those top teams for me as well. And they just do what they always do. They sit back and they let the draft come to them. And there's always going to be a couple of players that slip through the cracks, good players who end up just there on their laps, and they don't make a mistake. They don't make a mistake. They don't overthink it. And they did a great job in adding a player that's really a top 10 talent in my mind in this draft at 27, and Malachi Starks. And then they also get Mike Green at 57. I mean, Mike Green was a player that we all thought could potentially be a top 20 pick, and they get him at 57. Buchanan's a really good linebacker. Vincent's, he had a little trouble Senior Bowl week, but he's somebody they can work with. Cohn, of course, had that great 40. That's what really made him stand out. They picked our top-rated kicker. We all know what's going on there with Tucker. Wester really did produce the last couple of years between FIU and Colorado. Is that FAU or FIU? Where was he, Wester, before that?
I couldn't remember. Yeah.
And Peebles, another good play, another good talented player in the 6th round. Robert Longerbeam. You get any cornerback, any defensive back that comes from Rutgers. Greg Schiano knows how to coach these kids to make them really good professionals. And I thought the Ravens did an awesome job.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Being able to get a value pick like Malachi Starks at pick 27 is incredible for them. It's going to help a lot with the versatility for Kyle Hamilton as well, whether they want to play Malachi Starks back at deep safety, whether they want to play him in the nickel. You also have a versatile player like Kyle Hamilton that could play either as well at a high level. So it's going to be interesting to see what they can do with them. But as we've talked about before, Malachi Starks, quick processing speed, sticky man coverage skills. He could tackle efficiently. He's got range. He's kind of like he can do pretty much everything for him. So I'm not surprised that the Ravens took him there. With him being there at 27, feels like a home run pick for me. Mike Green, shocked to see him fall as far as he did. I'm guessing that certainly comes from the character concerns. But when you're just evaluating the player on the field, I should say, his pass rush skills, his pass rush repertoire, he can be a double-digit sack guy at the next level on a consistent basis. I know that the Ravens did their homework on him. And like we had talked about, surely because of the character concerns is why he ended up falling this far. But just looking at the player, just looking at his skill set, I think he can provide instant value for the Ravens in their pass rush. There's also 2 guys that you had mentioned that I really wanted to hone in on. Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, the defensive tackle, was a guy that I had marked down early in the process as a quote-unquote sleeper or maybe like a hidden gem or something like that. He's not going to show up and be like a guy that's going to be known for his size. He's undersized. He's got short arms, but he's a guy that's going to be able to impact the run, impact the pass right off the bat. He's got a nonstop motor. And he's one of the guys that I could see developing into a future starter in the league. And then Robert Longerbeam, who you had mentioned, the cornerback from Rutgers. He's got inside-outside versatility. I think he's going to be more of a slot cornerback at the next level, but it's a guy that wins with length, guy that wins with physicality at the line of scrimmage. He's a notable athlete. He's got ball skills. He's going to be able to contribute early for Baltimore's defense.
And then look who they've already signed. After the draft, they signed one of the most productive college linebackers the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And looking at Jay Higgins on film, I'm trying to put this the right way. I would certainly expect that he would get drafted considering he had, I think it was 295 tackles over the past 2 seasons. Size and speed is going to be something that's going to hold him down. But he's an instinctual player. He's obviously very physical. He's a guy that has a knack for finding the football. A little surprised that he went undrafted. Maybe not super surprised. We did have him as a back-end type of guy, but the Ravens are getting a heck of a steal with this pick.
Okay, next up, the Buffalo Bills, and let's take a look at their draft. And overall, I thought the Bills were okay. You know, they got a very speedy corner. Matter of fact, they went defense, and defense. They only had a couple of picks on offense, and that was towards the end of the draft. But really, all of their key picks were these top 5 were on defense. Jackson was somebody that we saw and impressed during Senior Bowl week. Deion Walker, boy, talk about a polarizing player at our lads. We have a video on him from about 7 months ago talking about this is a guy to watch, first-round talent. And boy, that video did not hold up well. But we've done a lot of talk since then over the past 2 months trying to update the fact that we have not been happy with the way that he played and performed overall in 2024. And that's the reason he ended up as a 4th-round pick. But as a 4th-round pick, now that is something to keep an eye on. And they also, of course, added another defensive tackle in TJ Sanders. So 3 guys up front and a speedy corner.
Absolutely, for sure. And I'd love to focus in on both of the Kentucky guys. Maxwell Harrison felt like was at the back end of the first, felt like a great value pick. He's a guy that has excellent man coverage skills. He's a great athlete. He's going to be a guy that could step up right away. Game 1, be a starter for the Buffalo Bills in their secondary. Deion Walker, I know that we had just talked about. He played with a back injury last year. It showed up on tape. The Bills did their research. They felt comfortable taking him, even with the injury problem with his back. Mammoth of a human being with impressive movement skills. He's going to be a factor in both the run and the pass game. Has to work on lowering his pad level, but it remains to be seen kind of what that back injury, like how bad it was, like how much did it affect his play. So 4th-round pick, that's good value.
And also Dorian Strong, by the way, to get him in the 6th round, that was That was pretty nice. And they have also added Hancock in round 5. But overall, yeah, I thought they did a really good job. Hairston, we know how we know his speed, and we know this was also important that they needed a number 1 corner, or at least somebody that could start, because there was no way Tre'Davious White was going to really be considered a starter on day 1 for the Bills. So Hairston's going to get every opportunity to start day 1. That's for sure. Okay, let's now move on to the next team, and that is going to be Carolina. Overall, Carolina was okay. If you take a look at their draft, McMillan was the big one. And considering their head coach, former wide receiver position coach, not a surprise. He fell in love with McMillan, and why not? I mean, the kid is just a really fantastic player. There are a few measurables that you look at and you go, well, I'm not sure he's as good as you say, but those measurables sometimes, especially 40 time, can be a little bit overblown. The kid is just a machine as far as being a playmaker, and he can score just about any time he touches the ball. They get a couple of edge guys here that are interesting, but where they got him, I thought that was okay. And then later on, they grab a few other players. Mitchell Evans, a tight end. They could definitely use some additional work there. So what did you think about Carolina's draft?
I think it's going to be interesting to look at their receiving core. I think it could end up being one of the more underrated receiving cores in the NFL coming into next season. Obviously, as you talked about, just drafted Tech McMillan out of Arizona, a big body receiver who can kind of do it all. They have Xavier Legette returning from last year, and Adam Thielen, who I feel like kind of went under the radar a little bit because he was hurt for most of the season, but came back with a strong finish. They had Jalen Coker, their undrafted rookie from last year, step up and make big plays for them. And then Jimmy Horn out of Colorado ended up getting picked in the 6th round. He's going to step up and be able to take some snaps at the slot receiver position as well. So I do think that this could be a position that becomes one of the more underrated positions in the NFL. I also like that they ended up taking 2 edge rushers early and bulking up that pass rush.
Garbage is a quarterback that they signed afterwards that I actually think if they stick with 3 quarterbacks, I wouldn't be surprised if Garbage was able to beat out Jack Plummer. I think Garbage is a kid that needs some pro development. He might be able to turn into a pretty good backup at the next level. All right, let's move on to the next team, and that's going to be the Chicago Bears. Overall, the Bears had some interesting and positive picks, especially their top 2. Colston Loveland, getting him, even though there was some question about taking Loveland over Warren. And I just look at it as, I guess they did that because it just fit their scheme better. They already have Cole Kmet. Maybe they just felt Loveland and Kmet worked better than Warren and Kmet, because Warren is just a better overall tight end. I'm kind of surprised in that respect. But again, I just think that's a scheme fit. Burden to get him in the 2nd round, that had to feel like a steal. A few other good players, as you could see here. And Kyle Monangai, I'm going to tell you right now, Kyle Monangai is going to be we already saw Pacheco, another Rutgers running back from that program, succeed with the Chiefs a few years ago. And I believe Monangai can have the same success in the NFL that Pacheco had. So overall, some positive players, especially on offense.
Absolutely. Having a receiving core as well that has DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Luther Burden, who's going to probably end up starting in the slot, is one heck of a receiving core. That's a great pickup for the Bears. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Zoff Frazier because he was one of my favorite players that I had watched throughout the draft prospect. He's going to be a guy that's going to be able to earn some playing time immediately in Chicago. Big, long, slender cornerback. He's got very long arms. He's I wouldn't say well undersized, but he's certainly undersized. But he showcased excellent man coverage skills on tape. He's able to blanket receivers, leverage multiple targets in zone coverage. He lacks some weight. He's not going to be able to shed a block consistently. That's going to limit his potential as an open field tackler. But I do see him at some point making an impact during his rookie season. And for a guy that was selected in the 5th round, I believe with a comp pick in the 5th round as well, that's pretty solid value.
As far as the signings afterwards, this is the guy that I would keep an eye on, Major Burns. I thought he had a draftable, in my mind, I think he was a draftable type of talent. And I think he's the type of player that could definitely stick on before it's all said and done. And as I said, also with this backfield, watch out for Kyle Monangai. All right, let's move on to the next team, and that is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, who I thought overall had some moments early on. They get their edge rusher. We knew that they needed to get one. They picked him early, and Shamar Stewart's a player that we believe could definitely end up overall a much better prospect than even at 17. He's that talented. Knight was our top-rated linebacker. Barrett Carter, getting him in round 4. And then Ty Brooks. Boy, you talk about production at a big-time college as far as the Big 12 is concerned. He really produced over the last several years, and they could use some backups at the running back position. So I thought the Bengals had some good moments.
The running back position was so deep this year. I feel like a lot of people forgot about Taj Brooks. He was a guy, last year during the summer scouting that we talked about as potentially being a running back 1 candidate. Being able to get him in the 6th round, I feel like is pretty good value. You go back and watch his tape, and you can still see a lot of that talent is there from when we were talking about as a potential running back 1 in the class. I wouldn't say he's certainly, well, let me say this. He's certainly not number 1 in this class, but the talent's there to be a pretty good player.
And look at this again, just like Monunga, I think Brooks landed in a good situation. Perine hasn't done anything the last few years. Zach Moss is coming off an injury. So watch out with Taj Brooks to possibly get into this spot, maybe as early as 2026, if all goes well. They also signed Seth McLaughlin after the draft, which was a smart move. And by drafting Matt Lee last year, one of these guys probably end up as the starting center, maybe as early as next year for the Bengals. So I thought that was a pretty good pickup as well. Okay, let's move on. Next up is the Cleveland Browns. And look, a lot is said about what the Browns did, of course. There's probably if there's any team that had the most headlines, it was definitely the Browns for a variety of reasons. I think the trade to get all these additional picks, considering who they ended up getting, I thought really worked out well for them. I do. On the other hand, I think the Browns do a pretty good job of drafting anyway, and they have there's a lot of talent on their depth chart. I almost feel like it would have been nice, though, for them to just go after some superstars now, because that's what you need. It's nice to have a really good depth chart, but how many superstar difference-making players do the Browns have? I don't think they have enough of those, which is the reason why you could have had one. But again, I'm not going to argue with what they did, the players they got. We know how much John Cooper loves Schlesinger, to get Judkins, to get Fannin to team up in at tight end with Njoku. And then, of course, you also got Sampson at running back too. And then to get Gabriel and Sanders. To get Gabriel, by the way, in the 3rd round was something. But to get Sanders in round 5 is going to make things very interesting around Browns camp for the next couple of months.
Absolutely. And the Browns now have 5 quarterbacks currently on the roster. All of them have some sort of question mark. So the 2 players that I really paid attention to the most were Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, the running back, Quinshon from Ohio State and Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. That's going to add a lot to their rushing game. The rushing attack was 29th, I believe, in the NFL in 2024. So really needed to add something there. Judkins is going to be kind of that tough power back. He's going to be the guy that gets the dirty work done in the trenches. They pair him up with Sampson, who can kind of be more of that shifty, elusive back who can be explosive in space. I really think that this is going to be a pretty strong backfield for the Cleveland Browns and hopefully some improvements from last season. You talked a little bit about the quarterback situation as well. That's obviously going to be the big storyline with the Browns. They took Gabriel higher than I would have, but they certainly see something there. He's got a ton of experience. He has a lot of experience playing football, and he's one of the most productive quarterbacks in college football history. So I can see why they would do that. Then to go get Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, a player of his talent, that's going to be a heck of a quarterback room. I really don't know what they're going to do because they have 4 quarterbacks. If Deshaun Watson is not able to be on the field week 1, they're going to have 4 quarterbacks that are on the roster. So I don't know if that means putting Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett on the practice squad, but I'm really interested to follow that quarterback room. It's going to be one of the more interesting quarterback rooms in the NFL this year.
Well, look, Watson is not playing for the Cleveland Browns, period, end of story. He'll be on the sideline wearing street clothes probably for most of the season. So I'll even let Tucker know so he can get Watson needs to be back here. He ain't playing. I'll tell you right now, I think Flacco's got the lead opportunity for the number one starter. Unless somebody makes a trade for one of these two guys or one of these three here, that's the thing to keep an eye on. That's the thing. I don't know. I mean, it's possible the Pickett move was just insurance in case they weren't able to land a couple of quarterbacks in the draft, and then they'll move on from Pickett. But they're going to have to do something, because it's going to be Flacco and Pickett more than likely battling for the number one spot, and these two guys are going to develop. So, this could go on all the way till training, and then they could decide to trade one of these guys as the veterans, more than likely Pickett. I mean, unless Pickett does a great job in camp and just completely wins over the job, that could be something different. And maybe Cleveland trades Joe Flacco. So I think one of these veterans probably gets traded at some point, and these two guys develop. Okay. Oh, by the way, the player they signed, this kid here, Aiden Huntington, is a nice player to keep an eye on. So not bad to get him. I don't think he was really considered a draftable guy, but he's got some talent, had a really good pro day. Somebody to keep an eye on. Okay. The Dallas Cowboys are next. And I must say that the Cowboys initially, when I heard that Booker was the pick, man, I just started shaking my head, and I don't know, what are they doing? I mean, you're going to get Booker. What are you taking him at 12 for? I mean, he's a guard. Guards are not taken in the NFL draft at 12 unless they're superstars. That's just a position. It's just the way that it is. And Booker ain't no superstar. So, but then there were some other picks that I actually felt, okay, if you're making picks like this, then overall, if you just put the players in a package and you don't tell me where they were picked, then I like the talent that they added. I like Ezraku from Boston College, Revel. Just imagine what he could be like if he comes back with a clean bill of health. Cornelius, to get him in round 6 was a really good pickup as well. So I thought that they added some real good players. I just still don't like the fact that they added Booker at 12.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had already touched about it with Donovan Ezraku. That was one of our fan favorites over here at Our Lads. He's a guy that really stood out both on tape and then against top talent at the Senior Bowl. A guy that could potentially start for them right away if he shows that he's able to do so. And then also, like you had said, Siobhan Revel from Eastern Carolina. He had an injury. He had missed this past season. He's dripping with athleticism, dripping with potential. He could be a guy that develops into a starting cornerback for him in the near future.
Clark is a safety that had a draftable grade. This is a kid that I want Dallas Cowboy fans to keep an eye on as far as he was just signed. So I like this kid. I think he could make the team. Justin Barron out of Syracuse. Okay. Let's move on. Next up is Denver. And Broncos, look, I thought they got the first 3 picks here. I do like Pat Bryant. I mean, he's made some really big strides the last couple of years. I don't know about taking him in round 3. That's the thing. RJ Harvey, no problem where they picked him. Talented player. Of course, everybody thought that they would go with running back first. They decide to take Harvey second, which I think makes a lot of sense because Harvey is a talented player, probably going to start for them day one. And then Barron is just maybe too good to pass up. So I can't argue with that. But later on, I mean, none of these other players really wow me. They picked a punter in round 6. So, again, they added a couple of really good players. There's top 2 guys, and I like Bryant. I just don't like really where Bryant was picked. But, hey, you know what? Denver, they're on the rise, and they're a smart organization right now with Peyton and company.
Yeah, absolutely. And during the draft process, RJ Harvey was a guy that I've had my eyes on for a long time. There's a video back in the summer of me talking about as a potential standout. He's a guy that I love. I was a little surprised that he got taken in the 2nd round, but when you look at the Broncos running back room, their scheme and everything like that, that just feels like a perfect fit for him. So no questions or concerns for me there. I believe I've been calling him Jade Barron. I believe it's pronounced like Yede Barron or something. I saw
Yede. All right.
It's something different than Jade, but I'm going to continue to call him Jade because I don't remember the exact pronunciation.
Okay.
Going to be a guy that could start day one for him. He's a guy that I really, really liked coming out of Texas and could be a star nickel at the next level.
Yeah, they have already signed a boatload of players, and some guys that just stuck out for me. They get, let's see, no, not that's that. I was looking at Eli. Webb, they get him. They sign Webb. They sign Michalski, Truss. I like Truss a lot. They get him. They sign Johnny Walker Jr. I thought that was a nice signing. Karen Reed, Bowler. I mean, a lot of these guys are not going to make the team, but I think some of these guys are clearly going to make the practice squad. So a lot of really interesting players that they signed after the draft. Okay, the Detroit Lions are next. I really like, how can anybody not like what the Lions have become? And my talks with Jeff Risdon, who covers the Detroit Lions, I've enjoyed all of that over the past few years, from where they were to where they are. But I question this draft a little bit myself. I'm not really. I mean, Ratledge, I like Ratledge. I don't know about second round, but I like Ratledge a lot. I think he's a definite player that fits what this team is looking for. And Dan Jackson, the same thing. I think Dan Jackson fits that as well. What did they pick? 3 Georgia kids. So I think Jackson and Ratledge are 2 players. Those are lunch pail type of kids that just come with everything, and the Lions fans are going to love them. But the kid from Boise State, good edge rusher, their top edge rusher for the last few years. But I don't know. I'm not like jumping up for joy over this group, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think there was a couple picks that stood out for me. Isaac Tesla from Arkansas was one of them. He was a guy that I felt was underutilized when going back and watching the tape on him at Arkansas. The only reason I did is because he stood out so much at the Senior Bowl that I felt like I had to go check out the tape. He wasn't a guy that I really heard of too much, and I think that's a great pick for him in the 3rd round. Ahmad Hassanein, he's a guy that I feel like his perfect role, certainly he's going to be a guy that can play on the edge. Is going to be on 3rd downs where you can bump kind of a smaller, maybe an edge rusher inside to like a 3-tech type of position and just have him go rush the passer. Just with his power and his strength, I feel like that's going to be a good spot for him. And Dan Jackson, the safety from Georgia, just feels like a Dan Campbell type of pick. He's a tough, physical safety that I think will excel early on, especially on special teams for Detroit.
The one signing they made I'd keep an eye on is Jackson Meeks. A very productive year last year at Syracuse's Kyle McCord's #1 receiver. So I can definitely see Meeks actually making this team. So keep an eye on him. All right, that's the Detroit Lions. Next up, we're going to go with their division rivals, the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers definitely added some really good players. I mean, to get Golden at 23 was nice. A lot of people thought he could go as high as 12 to the Cowboys. They then doubled down on the receivers. So Savion Williams goes in in round number 3. I'm a really intrigued Colin Oliver fan, and I know you wanted to talk about him as well. I mean, this is a kid who just broke out as a freshman. And when he was so productive as a freshman, you just thought, oh, just give him a couple of years. Watch out. This guy's going to be something else. And then they started fooling around with him at linebacker. And I think that might have messed around with his overall development as an edge rusher. But if that's all the Green Bay Packers want Colin Oliver to do is just dedicate his time as an edge rusher, I think they could get something really good there in round number 5.
Yeah, Colin Oliver gets the Coach Russell stamp of approval. He's one of my favorite guys in this entire draft. He missed most of the 2024 season with an injury, but if you go back and check out that 2023 tape, you check out his freshman year, he's an athletic specimen. He's a guy that can make an impact in pass rush, fires off the ball like a cannonball with elite bend, and contact balance to corner effectively. He's also able to blow up runs by squeezing inside of pores, able to hold up when I head up with blockers. I could see him being a huge steal, and I don't throw around the elite term a lot, but he's a guy in the future that I could see being a real star in the NFL.
I like it. And boy, look at this receiver room now. Something tells me they're going to be making a trade or two right around camp time. There's just too many bodies here. Of course, their hope is that Golden becomes the #1. That's the reason why they went after him. And if that happens, he could be that guy. Watch out. because that room is stacked. Dumas Johnson is an interesting signing. He definitely was a draftable grade guy, and Stackhouse maybe as well. So maybe a couple of signings to keep an eye on for Packer fans. Next up, the Houston Texans. Matter of fact, these next couple of picks, teams, I really liked what they did. Houston really loves Iowa State wide receivers, don't they? Not only because they doubled down in this draft, but of course they picked one a couple of years ago, who actually was Iowa State's top wide receiver about 3 years ago. So they must do something. Campbell, who knows? Maybe he's their next head coach or next offensive coordinator, Matt Campbell. But Higgins and Knoll, so that was nice. They get Ursery in round 2. He could be a day one starter and a long-term starter at offensive tackle. Woody Marks is going to help him out of the backfield. Jalen Reed had a breakout year to get him in round 6 was excellent. I really like Graham Mertz. If it wasn't for the injury, I think he could have been even higher than this. I just like the way he moves and runs. I think there's a very minor Josh Allen in him. When you look at him on tape, very minor, but you see it. You see his running ability, the way he throws on the run, and he's very accurate. So I think Mertz could definitely land as a nice backup and maybe a future starter if they need him. And Hamilton, also a really good player that I think is going to help him out on the defensive front. And they added a tight end that you actually like as well in round 7.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Just going back, I know you talked a little bit about the Iowa State receivers. Getting both of them, that's pretty special. I'm a humongous fan of Jalen Knoll. He's a little bit undersized, but he's so explosive. He's such a good route runner. Really feel like he's a guy that could step up right into the Houston's starting lineup and be a contributor right away, be a star. It was funny because my comparison before the draft was Tank Dell. Now he's teaming up alongside Tank Dell, so very, very similar type of players. Luke Lachey, as I had talked about, or as you had mentioned, 7th round pick. I'm a little surprised that he fell to almost undrafted territory or into that undrafted territory. He can do a lot of things well. He's an inline blocker, or can be an inline blocker efficiently. He's got long arms to make catches away from his body. He can be that reliable security blanket at the next level and can develop into a top tier backup tight end in the league. Like I said, little surprised that he fell all the way to the 7th round. That's not to say that he's super special or anything like that, but do think he could be a strong contributor in the future.
Eli Cox, they get him after the draft. So I thought that was a very smart move and a good signing for Cox because they can use all of the competition at center they can get their hands on. So that was nice. And I like this kid, Elijah Huzzie, out of North Carolina. I think he might have a chance to make the team as well as a defensive back. So, yeah, I absolutely loved the draft for the Houston Texans. And I also really like the draft from the Indianapolis Colts. Their competition in the South. Just imagine being a Colt fan and seeing Tyler Warren available. You don't have to go up and get him. That must have been such an awesome feeling for Colt fans. I really like this kid out of Ohio State. I really do. I think he's underrated. I think he's going to be a really good player at the next level. I never thought Wally was going to be a 3rd round pick. To me, he was a sleeper. I liked him as a sleeper. And then when I saw round 3, I was like, well, I don't know about that. Sort of like Pat Bryant. I like Pat Bryant as a sleeper. Never thought he'd go in the 3rd round, though. They get Giddens in round 5. They get that second quarterback. They've talked about wanting to put pressure at that quarterback spot. And I think Riley Leonard is a smart move. He's a guy that we know can move around in that backfield. So I think that makes a lot of sense. That's what you want. Your backup quarterback to have similar traits to your starter. And I love this pick in round 7 on Hunter Waller. Talented kid. I think he has a chance to be a week 1 contributor. So I really like what the Colts did.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Colts absolutely 100% need a game changer at tight end. They went out and got one in Tyler Warren. He's not going to be like, I'm trying to put this the right way, but like kind of like add that juice, but he just gets it done. He's real quick in the open field. He's a good blocker. He's going to be a guy that can step up and start right away for the Colts. There's not a lot of competition for him there other than maybe like Mo Ali Cox as a run blocker, but going to be a guy that steps up immediately and starts. As you talked about with Hunter Wohler as well, the Colts have kind of had a like a history of converting safeties into linebackers. They started off a couple years ago with Ronnie Harrison, who was a safety for Alabama, bounced around the league for a couple years, and then came to Indianapolis and they converted him to linebacker and played pretty well. Then they took last year Jalen Carlisle from Missouri in the 5th round, ended up converting him to a linebacker, from safety, potentially in line to start this year. As it says on the RLAD's depth chart, he's currently in the starting will spot. And then this year they took Hunter Wohler and immediately listed him as a linebacker. So that's a trend to watch out for in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and also if one thing that Ballard has done well is that getting guys 6th round, 7th round, college free agents, and turning them into players that contribute and maybe even start for you. So we'll keep an eye on those guys for sure. Okay, next up, we'll stay in the division with the Jacksonville Jags. And this is, sort of like the opposite end of Cleveland. What did you think if you're a Jags fan? Well, I mean, there's a lot of need on the team. And it would have been nice for the Jags to take and to keep as much of that collateral as possible and turn it into talent because they needed it. But you can't argue with them getting one of the only 2 players in the entire draft that could be considered elite level, like can't miss. And Hunter's one of them. And so just because of that alone, it's a good draft. They had a few other players. Tootin's an interesting 4th round running back to keep an eye on. I like McLeod. I know you're a big Lane fan out of Navy. They also get another running back who can catch big time out of the backfield. Allen and Monheim was a nice selection in round 7.
Yeah, and Caleb Ransall, he actually played nickel for Tulane. Probably play nickel at the next level. One of my favorite prospects in the entire draft class this year. So Jacksonville got a good one with him. As you had mentioned before, I also really like Rayon Lane from Navy. 6th round seems like a great landing spot for him just because of kind of his skill set. He's not like an imposing athlete or anything like that, but his experience, his tenacious effort, and his elite ball production can't be ignored. When I say tenacious effort, I can't overstate it. He's a guy that coaches will love. Just being a defensive backs coach myself, he would be a model player for others in my room. He's not, like I said, not really an imposing athlete. 6th round seems like a good spot for him, but he's going to do everything the right way. He's going to be a fan favorite in Jacksonville. Excited to see what he does.
I just wonder, of course, everybody's going to wonder what is Travis Hunter going to do? I don't know if we've heard yet. That's the question, because contrary to what you might believe, he is not going to be playing both ways full time. I'm sure there'll be a handful of plays they'll use him from one of the other spots, depending on where he goes full time. But right now, our lads has him as in the starting receiver. So we'll find out if that's actually what Jacksonville sees in him, and that could be the case because they need another receiver opposite Brian Thomas Jr. So I'm sure we'll find out more about that in the coming days. And then one of their players they signed, I'm a big fan of, is Seth Hennigan. They got him after the draft. And I honestly believe by 2026, Seth Hennigan is going to be the number 2 quarterback to Trevor Lawrence when it's all said and done. Okay, next up is the Kansas City Chiefs. And let's see what the Chiefs did. I think overall, the Chiefs got a couple of good players as always. They added to the offensive line. That was a big surprise, even though they only went down that well once. But I'm not just sure Norman Lott, getting him at 63, that was a little surprising. But, the good edge rusher from Louisville in round 3, good corner from Cal in round 3 as well. Royals is an intriguing prospect who, just because he's with Randy Reed now, his stock just went up. Bossa getting him in round 5, and also Brashard Smith. Getting him in round 7 and putting him in Andy Reid's offense was the best thing for that kid's career.
Absolutely, for sure. And Kansas City is looking for a future backup running back or potentially even starting running back, depending on, what they end up doing with Isaac Pacheco. But Brashard Smith was a guy that stood out for me, at least at the Senior Bowl, and could be a guy to keep an eye on. I kind of agree with you on Omar Norman Lott, more so of a pass rush specialist more than an every down kind of player. And if that's the type of player that they wanted in the 2nd round, okay, he is going to add on to the pass rush for sure. But against the run, has some major holes. Not sure that he can be an every down player in the league, at least starting off as a rookie.
By the way, we're going to get to any of your questions or comments. I know Rula sent this early on, but we haven't gotten to Philly yet, but we'll get there. So if anybody has any more questions or comments regarding the teams that we either just talked about or are going to talk about, go ahead and let us know. As far as signings for the Chiefs, Brennanstool. Now that's one to keep an eye on. Everybody's waiting to find out who's eventually going to take over for Travis Kelce. I know Jared Wiley has the opportunity after being banged up last year. Noah Gray's got limitations. So, and I know Kupp's someone to keep an eye on, but Brennanstool landed in a good spot. So keep an eye on him. I also like Dalton Cooper as a signing after the draft. Badger had a nice career in college too, to keep an eye on for the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, next up. Let's take a look at the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, there were some questions I had with the Raiders draft. I wasn't really, they weren't one of my favorites. Look, you get Ashton Genty, though, and that's sort of like with Hunter. You get one of these guys on your team, and you're in great shape. So I thought that was a very smart move. And also getting this kid. We know Besh with the whole story by now, with the Senior Bowl and all that. So that was really nice. I like that. I'm not the biggest Darren Porter guy. I think he's more of a measurable guy as myself. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. But that jury's still out in my mind on Porter. Rodgers, I don't think he looked real good in the All-Star game. So I was a little surprised he went in round 3. Grant, they get a project there. No problem with that. Dante Thornton, again, another player, round 4. I think they could have gone in a number of other directions at wide receiver. I think this is a perfect Raiders pick to get this kid Peegs in round 6. And they also drafted, I guess, is this the converted quarterback?
Converted quarterback.
Yep. And then they drafted another quarterback, a couple of SCS guys, and then Lindenberg, a very productive linebacker in round 7. So what did you think about their draft?
Yeah, I thought it was funny that they took, quote unquote, 2 quarterbacks almost back to back at the 37th pick in the 6th round. They took Tommy Mellott, the quarterback out of Montana State, and then at the 6th round, at the 39th pick of the 6th round, I should say. So 2 picks later, they took the quarterback out of North Dakota State, Cam Miller. Tommy Mellott is one of the more interesting stories for me in all of the draft. As we had pointed out, 6th round to the Raiders. He was actually, as I just said, a quarterback in college for Montana State. He won the Walter Payton Award this past season for the best offensive player in the country in 2024. And despite his excellent quarterback ability, his most interesting trait may be his athletic ability. He finished his college career with over 3,500 rushing yards and 43 rushing touchdowns. And he also tested remarkably. He had a 4.39 40-yard dash with a 1.5 flat 10-yard split, which is up there at the tip at the top. And a 41-inch vertical to go along with it as well. He's been working out as a wide receiver. That's what they have listed on him, or listed him as too, on a lot of the draft publications. He's going to be an interesting storyline to follow to see how Pete Carroll and the Raiders utilize and develop him.
I thought they did a good job signing some players today. Jod Joyner, I like him. I think he could stick on as a nice rotational edge. Also, Matt Jones, really productive lately. With a very good head coach there, knows how to coach defense over at Baylor. Dotson, another playmaking corner at Kansas that they're able to get after the draft. I like Dotson. So there's some nice players that they signed after the draft too that you want to keep an eye on as a Las Vegas Raiders fan. Now we move on to the Los Angeles teams. The Chargers are first, and they're able to get Hampton. And I thought this was interesting because a lot of people thought, well, the Chargers probably going to go with Hampton at 20, and yet they don't take him, and so the Chargers get him. So now the Chargers in the same division as Denver gets Hampton. So that's going to be a storyline to follow, whether or not Denver is going to regret not taking Hampton. Now they're going to play him twice a year. So that's something to watch. Trey Harris, I like that pickup in round 2. Caldwell's a good player. Kennard's a good player. Gadsden, no surprise, he picks up a tight end. We know Gadsden's more like a slot guy more than anything. He's not an inline tight end. Mickens, though, getting him in round 6 was also a really nice pickup. So what do you think about the Chargers?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to make sure that Chargers fans aren't confused with the quote-unquote tight end that they had picked up, Rondon Gadsden is a heck of a playmaker. I think he played last season, according to their website, at like 229 pounds. So he's not going to be a guy that's going to be, you're going to put in line, get the work done in the trenches. He's going to be, like you had said, a split out slot receiver, but a big body split out slot receiver that can go up, win the contested catch, and is a great athlete overall. He's a player that I think could contribute maybe even right away for the Chargers in the passing game.
As far as they've already signed a bunch of guys, I know Wax had a huge pro day, so you might want to keep an eye on him. The kid from Bowling Green at corner, he had a really good career. Let's see who else sticks out here after the draft. Washington, I like Washington. I think Washington's a player to watch. They get Sanders, the kid from South Carolina, at running back too. So he's got talent. So keep an eye there. Also, Nash Jones. I like Nash Jones. I think he's somebody that could make the team based on what we see here as the backups. And Luke Grimm could be an interesting receiver to keep an eye on. He was the number one option next to Arnold at Kansas just recently. Okay, next up, the other Los Angeles team, the Rams. And all I know is the Rams have the best general manager in football. And so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially early on, where they picked their tight end of the future. They needed to do that, so they get their guy. I'm a big Josiah Stewart fan. I think this is a great spot for him. Excellent pick. A little bit surprised Hunter went 4, but the kid's talented. And he also, I like these little guys, the Rams in the backfield. I think he's fit perfectly. Chris Paul. Wow, they got Chris Paul in round 5. What a deal was that?
No kidding, right? He was a fan favorite of Coach Coop throughout the entire draft process, and for good reason. He does exceptionally well as a downhill player. He's got instincts, range, assertiveness when filling gaps. He still needs some work with like route recognition in pass coverage, but overall he's pretty solid. There's 2. Shocked to see him fall all the way down there. I thought for sure he was going to be at the very least a day 2 pick. He is going to be an absolute steal for the Rams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, because they like Spites, okay, but he was injured last year. Didn't get the opportunity to develop the way they wanted to. And Reeder just comes back because they just needed some more depth and a veteran guy that knows the system. But they needed an inside guy. And to get him round 5, I don't see any reason to believe that he couldn't start day 1 along with Spites. So keep an eye on that for the Rams. Let's move on to the next team here, and that is going to be the Miami Dolphins. And honestly, I haven't been a big fan of how the Dolphins have drafted recently. They've had the same regime basically there for a while, and I don't know. Again, it's a draft that they add a couple of good players, but overall, I don't know. But there's some good here. Look, getting Kenneth Grant, nice pickup. I mean, he's going to be a monster. You can't argue with that. Trading up here, I was a little bit surprised. Pick 5 in round 2. I don't know. But Ollie Gordon, I'm a big fan of Ollie Gordon. We just talked about his buddy Oliver. And Ollie Gordon, I mean, if this would have been after 2023, we might be talking about Ollie Gordon in 3rd round. This kid is very talented and he's very productive. And I just think he is, and especially the way the Miami Dolphins want to run the football. They've got a 3-headed monster there now at running back. And how in the world does Quinn Ewers last to the 7th round with the need for quarterbacks in the NFL? How does he last to round 7?
Yeah, when you see a player as talented as him that falls all the way to the 7th round, you have to wonder what showed up on the medical exams that the teams have access to that us, the fans, really don't have access to. I'm sure that's what had him fall all the way to the 7th round. When I watched him on tape, he had some of the best throws of the entire season on his film of any quarterback in the entire draft. He was throwing dots downfield. He was making some crazy plays that make you think, wow, that kid has the talent to be the 1st overall pick in the entire draft. However, he also made some really, really bad plays. He looked injured at times. And you have to wonder, how injured is he? And apparently just looking at the medicals, could be the case that there's something lingering there that could affect him for the future. But regardless, for a 7th round flyer, getting one of the most talented passers in the draft is one heck of a steal. I also wanted to point out Jason Marshall from Florida as well, the cornerback. He's got a ton of experience. He's got a lot of good film out there, and he's a guy that I could see stepping up early for him.
I'm a big fan of Eugene Asante, who they picked up after the draft and signed him. I mean, this kid's like a missile out there, very physical. Really like that pickup. I think he'll make the team. And they also added some interesting skill position players, Armstrong, Weiss, and Conyers, to keep an eye on. Okay, that's the Dolphins. Next up, we're going to go with Minnesota. And I've got to be honest, this is my least favorite. And more importantly, I should say it like it's the one draft that I'm the most concerned with. First, there's only 5 picks. So that's an issue right there. But there wasn't like one player that they took where I went, wow, that's their pick of the draft. But when you only have 2 picks in the first 4 rounds, that's what's going to happen. So it's kind of hard to grade them that way. Look, Felton's a nice player. I think he could be a lot better at receiver than most people think. And Donovan Jackson fills a need. He could start for them day one, possibly. Ingram Dawkins would be a nice rotational player. Kobe King, maybe he'll be a better linebacker in the pros than he was at college. He never was able to take that next step in college, but he's got talent. And we also know Bartholomew has talent at tight end. I mean, he's a guy that's put up some numbers. Matter of fact, he put up some big down the field numbers a couple of years ago. Not so much in 2024, but he showed he could do it a couple of years ago. So all these players are nice players, but nobody that just, excites you off the bat. And again, it's kind of hard to grade a team that only has 5 picks.
Yeah, no kidding on that. Certainly a little difficult to project him. I'd say the ones you want to hang your hat on are Donovan Jackson and Ty Felton. Both of those guys can be pretty solid starters in the NFL, in my opinion. The other 3 picks, maybe something comes of them, but they weren't 3 guys that I thought were, huge playmakers or anything like that. So maybe I get proven wrong, but Donovan Jackson do think was a solid pick. Ty Felton do think was a solid pick. So would hang my hat on those guys.
And they signed a bunch of guys. And that's what you should do when you only drafted 5 of them. Guys that stick out here, they get Batty from BYU. So we'll keep an eye on Batty. He was their best edge rusher the last couple of years. And don't forget, BYU went undefeated for quite a while last season. And he was a big part of that. They got Logan Brown, which was a nice signing. He might be a down-the-road starter. Urasek at tight end is a talented player. They get Max Brosmer. They signed him after the draft. That's a nice developmental quarterback. Trey Stewart was productive, I believe. What was that? Jacksonville State, I believe. Huber had a good career. So there's a ton of interesting signings. Maybe even you look at the signings, and they definitely make up for only 5 picks. So
Zeke Correll as well. He's a guy that you could watch to make the roster.
Oh, by the way, and so what do you think about Brosmer?
Yeah, I watched him in the summer. I haven't watched him a ton from this past season, but I remember him having a really strong arm. He put up some good numbers. Do you think that he's a guy that they could at least keep around as a developmental prospect on the practice squad? But he's a guy that I know Dave Syverson really liked as a potential day 3 guy. So could be a guy that makes it.
Patriots, and the Patriots were able to help Drake May out an awful lot on offense. They were able to put some offensive linemen there with Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. They give him the best home run threat in the draft at running back in Travion Henderson. Kyle Williams, who actually, to me, feels like the perfect, typical Patriot receiver pick. They've had a bunch of problems with receivers in New England. I'm not saying Kyle Williams is going to be a bust or anything like that, but he just seems to me like the perfect Patriot receiver that they would add. Craig Woodson is a nice player too. They get him in round 4. A couple of nice defensive players here. I think Swinson's got talent in round 5. They get a kicker, one of the top kickers in the draft. And even Marcus Bryant has potential in round 7. And we know how badly the Patriots need competition on the offensive line. So I thought, there was some players to like and some players to be excited about if you're a Patriot fan.
Can't forget about Julian Ashby as well. I think he was the only long snapper that was drafted. So it seems like a pick that Bill Belichick would have made back in the day, and they're still making it for him. So Will Campbell, great pick in my opinion. Travion Henderson, such a great fit for that offense. Kyle Williams, a guy that's got a ton of talent, made a lot of plays at the Senior Bowl, made a lot of plays at Washington State. I feel like those top 3 picks, man, that might be the best top 3 picks of any team in the entire draft.
Let's move on. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints. And Saints had their moments. Banks, they get him at 9. There was some talk that he was going to last a little bit longer than that. And I do wonder if he would have been available for the Cowboys, if the Cowboys would have went with Banks instead of Booker. Because actually, that's what I thought they were going to do. Anyway, this is the one that is the biggest one that kind of, for me, puts their overall grade down. I don't know how this guy gets picked in the second round. I just don't. I mean, he's older. He's got injury issues over his career. He basically put together like, a nice year and a half or so for the Louisville, and then that's about it. I mean, he's not the perfect prospect. There's good things to like about him. I don't think there's any question about that. But keep in mind, when you draft a player like this, when you already have a young quarterback on your team that you drafted last year that I thought did a pretty decent job as a rookie last year, why not just play him? But they must really like him to pick him at the second round. They must believe that he could maybe, because of his age, his experience, that maybe he could start day one.
Yeah, I thought he had some off and on tape. I did think that he made a lot of really difficult throws with some really crazy arm angles, things of that sort. I was also really surprised that his number 1 receiver, Ja'Cory Brooks, did not get drafted because that dude's electric. But I do think Tyler Shuck has a good chance to walk in, and just with their quarterback room right now, especially if Derek Carr is hurt, to walk in and be the starter, even with Spencer Rattler still on the roster. I also wanted to talk about Quincy Riley, their cornerback. He's a guy that I think could step up and maybe not start in year 1, but I know that they do have some question marks at the cornerback position. I know that they got Kool-Aid McKinstry last year, but that other cornerback position is still kind of a toss-up. Could potentially be Quincy Riley.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Sanker and Riley, they get Stutzman. I think Diggs is one of those sleepers to keep an eye on in round 7. That's pretty much where he's projected to go. But I think there's some things to like about Diggs in round 7. So there's some good players there on defense that they trade. Even Devin Neal, that's a guy who could end up getting significant snaps for them real soon as another draft pick. And just taking a look at Yarns is somebody they signed after the draft. That's the running back from Delaware. And then they added another several guys. And the 2 guys that stick out for me were Jasheen Davis. I like Davis. I think he has a chance to stick. The edge rusher from Wake, and Tyreen Powell from Rutgers. The only thing with Powell is staying healthy. Powell is a guy, once again, he's coached up by Greg Schiano. He can make this team if he can stay healthy. So keep an eye on Tyreen Powell. Okay, let's move on to some more teams here. We're going to go with the 2 New York teams. And the Giants, look, they were the beneficiary for one of the 2 elite players. They got Abdul Carter. So right there, draft of success. I don't know what this is, except I kind of do. They really felt the need. I think there was a lot of pressure in New York to add a young quarterback prospect to get the fans excited about. I'm not saying that they don't like the kid, but I just think that the draft up to get him and all that, it's a big question mark for me. I like the Alexander pick. Scatterboo, I mean, we know what kind of year he had last year. That was a really nice story. The tight end from Nebraska could make their team. So there were some good players here, but I don't know. This is going to be it's one of those situations when you take a look at the Giants right now with their regime, you figure, well, why not? We may not be here much longer anyway. So we're trying to make some moves for the now. We don't care about next year or the year after. So in that respect, okay, why don't you go ahead and take the chance and see if Jackson Dart can stick?
Yeah, interestingly, I think Jackson Dart's going to be a guy that maybe not even play a snap this year, just with the guys that they have over him right now on the depth chart. They signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Not saying that either of them were world beaters, but having Jackson Dart and putting him in a situation where he can sit for a year or maybe 2 if he needs it is probably an ideal situation for him. I think the number 1 question mark for him is the processing speed. There's a couple throws on tape that are for a guy that has, 3 or 4 years of starting experience is like, I don't know. But certainly the arm talent is there. He can make every single throw on the field. It's just kind of getting him in a spot where maybe questioning, like, can he actually see the whole field? Can he actually process what's happening in front of him, and from a coverage standpoint as well? Because that's going to be really important for him. going to the next level. I think the bigger storyline actually is probably in the trenches. As you had talked about, they got Abdul Carter. They're matching him up with two great edge rushers that they already have there in New York, in Brian Burns, and they also have Kayvon Thibodeau as well on the roster. They also signed or drafted, I should say, Darius Alexander in the 3rd round. He put up some good stuff on tape. He had a good Senior Bowl week as well. He's got good power on contact, shed ability, lower body strength. He can anchor against double teams. You match him up with Dexter Lawrence, who's returning from injury as well, who, if he hadn't got injured, in my opinion, would have been the Defensive Player of the Year had he stayed on the same trajectory. That is building the team through the trenches, and they really want to make their identity in the trenches on the offensive line and on the defensive line, and this is a good way to start out with that. Cam Skattebo does not get enough credit for how good of a receiver he is and was at Arizona State. He's going to be a guy that can be a tough runner in between the tackles and can be a good complementary piece for Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary.
All right, and this is the one to keep an eye on. Makari Page after the draft. He did a good job for Michigan, especially when they moved him to nickel corner. So that's a position I would keep an eye on. He wasn't very good at safety, but when they moved to nickel corner, he actually seemed to do pretty well. I just want to say this. So Daniel Boardman, you could probably leave the channel if you actually think that we don't know what we're talking about. Just I don't know who said Randy Reed, because it wasn't me. And I don't know who said Isaac Pacheco, because it wasn't me. So I think you need to get your hearing lesson on, maybe get a new one of these, because nobody said Isaac Pacheco or Randy Reed. Okay.
Well, that might have been me. I think he got me with the Isaac. I'm looking back
you?
on it. That might have been me. Daniel might have got me there.
That's okay. Yeah, but just, how many times I have probably, because I've been I've been doing football, basketball, hockey, NASCAR, golf, you name it. Now, for 40 years, the one thing that I've always been bad at myself is sometimes even remembering the first person's name, because I have to remember 50,000 names of all the people that I wind up analyzing, grading, watching. It doesn't mean that you don't know what you're talking about. Just who cares what a guy's first name is anyway? It just matters whether or not the intent is there. So Hayden will take the L for the Isaac Pacheco, but other than that, that's all that means. It just means that he just missed the first name, which I've done many times. Okay. Here we go with the Jets. And so this is my team. And I would have given the Jets a very big grade in a positive way if it wasn't for their selection of Arian Smith. So I thought that this was exactly what I wanted them to do. I thought we knew they were going to get a tight end, so I can't argue with Taylor. You can't be surprised that they had two defensive backs because we know that they've got Aaron Glenn as their head coach. Thomas has got great length, and he could also play multiple positions. Then they get Moore in round 4. So I think that was a good move. This is the one that really is I don't know about this one at all. Everybody knows he can't catch. So, how many times have we seen in the NFL guys with great speed who can't catch? So, all right, we'll see. It's he's a hard worker, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But that's what really could wind up coming back to haunt them because they need more receivers. I like these two picks though here too. I think these two guys could actually end up being productive for them. Maybe not in year 1, but down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Sorry, Daniel. I believe it's Azariah Thomas from Florida State. He was a guy at the Senior Bowl that locked up essentially every single receiver that he went up against. Could be a guy that starts for him. Maybe, I don't want to say immediately, but maybe at some point during his rookie season.
Okay. Overall, Brady Cook, they signed him. I'm not a big Brady Cook fan, so I don't think he's really going to stick. The only way he sticks is if he beats out Adrian Martinez and Jordan Travis is not healthy. I love this pick, especially being from Michigan guy, because Donovan Edwards, I'm sorry, you can say what you want about what he looked like last year, But if you put Donovan Edwards on a team where all he's asked to do is get the ball a handful of times, and maybe you catch the defense at the right time. We know what he did at Michigan a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, especially in back-to-back years against Ohio State, in the national championship game, in the playoffs. And I'm sorry, I just think for him to last after the draft is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm excited to get him. I think Pritchett's a kid to keep an eye on. I know he's a little bit smaller, but he's fast. And I thought he actually had a pretty good Senior Bowl. So, yeah, I think there are a couple of players to keep an eye on. Jordan Clark, of course, is the son of NFL Network or ESPN, right? What's his name? Clark? Another first name I can't remember.
Are you talking about Ryan Clark?
Ryan Clark. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not my favorite guy, especially because all he's doing now is touting the whole Shedeur Sanders thing is racist related. So not my favorite analyst.
Donovan Edwards, when I was at the Senior Bowl, they put on a couple different pass protection drills throughout the week, and he might have been the best of all the running backs there. At least was certainly in the top 2 or the top 3, and that's kind of a skill set that not a lot of people think about at the running back position. He certainly has that to put his hat on.
Yeah, again, to get him after the draft was really promising for Jet fans to be, even though they have a deep backfield. Okay, Eagles, and here's Rolla. Let's post Rolla's comment up once again. So yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles were going to get good players, and the reason the Eagles were going to get good players is because this was, there were a lot of talented kids. Once you get past like the top 10 or 15 of the draft, guys that were like considered 16 to 20 could also be considered 40 or 50. There really wasn't a whole lot of difference between that. And so that's why you can still, as the Eagles, pick up a couple of guys like Campbell and Makuba. Robinson's a nice player as well. As far as the rest of the guys, though, I'm not a big Cameron Williams fan. I don't think he's going to make it. He's got a lot of work to do if he's going to. I like this, though. Powell Ryland. He's got some talent on the edge for Virginia Tech, and they do pick Kyle McCord, who also has talent. To get a player with his talent at round 6 at the quarterback position, I'm surprised that no other team with bigger needs at quarterback wanted to go ahead and get someone like McCord.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Powell Ryland, he was one of the bigger surprises of the entire draft for me to fall all the way to the 7th round. I know the Eagles, or at least the fans, were hoping to take, a bona fide edge rusher somewhere in the draft. And maybe unless you see Jahad Campbell as being that guy, which I wouldn't call him a bona fide edge rusher, great linebacker, maybe not a bona fide edge rusher, but a guy who can add value there. Antoine Powell Ryland being there in the 7th round that's great value for a guy that had 25.5 sacks over the past 2 seasons. He is going to be an undersized pass rusher. He's got short arms, but he's got a ton of successful pass rush moves. He's got a good arsenal of moves and has shown a variety of ways that he can win. So while he's not going to be the star that many fans expected him to land, this seems like a really strong value pick for a player with as much production and, with the skill set that he has.
Let's see. Hook, they signed after the draft. That's an intriguing player. He had a big couple of years for Toledo and the MAC. Also, Montrell Johnson Jr., they get him out of Florida. So I think that was a nice signing. This is a backfield that I could see Montrell Johnson landing. And in one of the most ridiculous decisions by all NFL teams, out of 32 NFL teams with the obvious need for offensive line talent, for nobody to draft Holland Pierce, to me, is incredible. Look, I watched Rutgers football every game since Holland Pierce was the starter, and they played Big Ten teams, some of the better defensive edge rushers you can find, and he never had his hat handed to him. Holland Pierce, sure. Is there a lot to work on? Yes. The kid was a walk-on. But look what he did at Rutgers in the Big Ten, and you don't draft a kid? Leave it to the Eagles to draft him. Smart. They know what they're doing. All right. Let's now move on to – got a few more to go here. And the Steelers were another team that had a really good draft. They get Harmon, who could easily have been a top 10 pick. There were some injury issues. Caleb Johnson, that you're prototypical between the tackles, Steelers rusher. What a bargain to get Jack Sawyer in round 4. Black is someone that did not test well, but he did get picked in round 5. But he's a big guy, and the Steelers obviously have something for him. Then they were able to get one of the better cover linebackers in the draft in round 7, so I like that. And then talk about one of the best value picks in the draft as well. Will Howard in round 6. Why? Because he didn't have a good combine. All the guy did was win a national championship in college football. And it wasn't like it was because he did it the way you can even take a look at how Michigan won their national championship the year before and say, well, it wasn't because of the quarterback. And I could say, okay, if you want to say that, they had a running game and a defense. That wasn't because that wasn't the case with Will Howard. Will Howard was just as important as many of the other players at Ohio State in winning their national championship. And I know college is college and the NFL is the NFL, but he made some tremendous throws in that game that has to tell you that he can make them. Now it's just a matter of whether or not he can make them on a more consistent basis. So I think this is just an awesome pick by the Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they do end up going into the season with Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterback, and that's not to throw any sort of shade at Mason Rudolph, I actually think I like him a little bit more than the consensus. At least getting Will Howard into the game, maybe even in packages, because he is such a great dual threat quarterback as well. If you watch his Ohio State tape and his Kansas State tape, was making plays all over the field with his legs as well. And as you had said, I know that he had a bunch of elite receivers, obviously, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, those type of players. Even though he has that elite type of talent around him, he was still making the throws and did lead Ohio State to a national championship. I think that's certainly worthy of consideration for sure.
Rock Taylor is a player I like, the receiver for Memphis. All you got to do is put on the tape whenever Taylor went up against the best competition and he came through. So I think Taylor, I know he doesn't have the measurables you're looking for, but I think he actually is the guy that can stick. And I just said this about Pierce. I'm going to say the same thing about Castro. What on earth is this guy doing as an undrafted free agent?
There has to be something going on, either a medical concern or something like that. He was in our top 5 safeties here at our lads. I thought he had the chance to be a really good nickel at the next level. For him to go undrafted is absurd to me. I can't fathom how that kid went undrafted.
San Francisco, the 49ers, they go edge, then they go tackle, they go back on defense, and then more defense. So the Niners just went a lot of defense, especially early on. They went with a lot of picks, but there's some talent there, no doubt. CJ West is a nice player to keep an eye on. Watkins is an intriguing receiver from Ole Miss. So is James at running back, especially. He could be a perfect system fit for Shanahan. Colby is a nice pick in round 7. And then Curtis Rourke, again, one of those quarterback prospects that I'm not surprised at all. He lasted to round 7. I don't look at him at all the way some people might start comparing him to Purdy. And look, when Rourke played against the top competition last year after coming from the MAC, he actually played 2 of his worst games. And there's talent there, yes, but this is where he belonged. And now maybe he is in the perfect system. This is the system that he needs in order to see whether or not they can make something out of him. I don't think he's a starter in the NFL, but he might turn into a pretty good backup.
Sure. And that's all you could ask for with the 7th round pick for sure. I'm with you. I don't know if Curtis Rourke is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL or anything like that, but I went to go watch him. This was, I guess, 2 seasons ago when he was still at Ohio, and you could see the arm talent was there. He was making some good throws and could be a guy that sticks around. A couple other players. I know you had mentioned CJ West as well. He's going to be a guy that steps up as maybe an immediate contributor for him as a run stuffer on their defensive line. Upton Stout from Western Kentucky is one of the more interesting players in the entire draft. We call him the pest over here at our lads because he's, I don't know how you call it, but he's so sticky in man coverage. He's physical. He's just really, really, really small, very undersized for the position. He's one of my favorite players that stood out at the Senior Bowl. He was locking up receivers left and right. And, hey, at the end of the day, if he's going to be locking up receivers like he did at the Senior Bowl, why not take a flyer on him? The Niners need to get younger all across the board, and they had, 10, 11 picks in this draft and maybe even more than that. So they're working on getting younger for sure and, taking players like those 2 guys, CJ West, Upton Stout, Jordan Watkins, Marquez Siegel, Curtis Rourke, Connor Colby, all those type of guys is only going to help them.
By the way, Nair is a guy that I'm not surprised ended up as a signing because this kid just can't make up his mind, I think on a daily basis. He's constantly changing teams. I don't know if I'm going to stay in college, go to the pros. That's the type of guy that really just somebody needs to sit down with him and just tell him to relax. But he's talented. He's a talented kid. The problem is he's had a little bit of an injury history. And also, like I said, he's a kid that just needs to get his head on straight in my mind. So you get him after the draft, though, and maybe San Francisco can make something out of him. Okay, next up, let's go with Seattle. And the Seahawks had some interesting picks. They had a lot of picks. A little bit surprising that Zabel went 18. But to get Amanwari, I mean, if you switch this, that would have made more sense. But they got them both. So that's good. They got Arroyo. That was nice. Milroe in round 3. A little bit surprising for me, considering they just went all in on Sam Darnold, who's in the prime of his career. But okay, I don't have a problem with adding quarterbacks. I always think you should. Mills is a nice player. Horton, all depends on when he comes back from the injury. He could be a bargain in round 5. Martinez, another running back. And Ricky White is a player that had a much needed boost on his pro day after running really slow at the combine. And look, I think sometimes that's all you have to do. If you can just run even somewhere lower than 4.6, obviously, Miami's receiver, who I don't think we've talked about yet, that 4.8 one time was just out of this world bad. But I think he's run fast enough now that Ricky White could be a player to keep an eye on. So what did you think about Seattle's draft?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty solid overall. I was with you. Jalen Milroe, especially when they had just signed Sam Darnold, maybe not too crazy of a decision. I was a little surprised that they went and drafted a quarterback as early as the 3rd round, but if you turn on his tape, he is electric on the ground. He is one of the best mobile quarterbacks to come out of college football in a long time, and that's saying something. And he also has the arm talent. There's a lot. I shouldn't say some. There's a lot of inconsistencies with his play. He can make the throws. He's shown that he can make the throws. It's just doing so on a consistent basis. Being able to develop a guy with as much talent as him is only going to benefit them. I like Nick Emenwari as well. Not sure where his ideal fit is going to be, but for getting a freak athlete like him, where they got him early on in the 2nd round, I think is a good deal for him.
And Zay Alexander was a draftable player, so they got him after we were able to sign him, so that was nice. Okay, we only have a couple more teams left. Tampa Bay, and I thought the Bucs had one of the better drafts. They get Igbokwe. This surprised me, though. Somebody said something, I think, after it was one of the guys on ESPN or NFL Network after they picked them up and referenced, well, Mike Evans ain't going to be there forever. Mike Evans ain't going anywhere the next couple of years. Mike Evans ain't 40. Mike Evans just came off another 1,000-yard season. He's going to be around for another 2 or 3 years. You picked up Igbokwe, and then you went ahead and picked up Tez Johnson around. How many receivers do you need? What is this, Arena League? So I don't know what Tampa's doing there, but they're good players. That's the good thing, is they're good players. So is Benjamin Morris. I love the fact that Benjamin Morris is even though he was round 2, I think he was a round 1 guy, in my opinion. I think another guy that I think you start nitpicking him coming off the injury, and it's too much nitpicking. The kid's a really good player. They also doubled down with Parrish. David Walker was a nice pickup, as was Roberts, the 2 edge rushers here. That's why I like their draft a lot. I just didn't really understand all the receivers they're putting on this team. I'm a little bit surprised by that.
Yeah, and they added Tez Johnson on top of that, too.
Yeah.
I know you had mentioned him. I don't know if he's going to make the roster with who they have in the receiving core currently, but he is kind of a unique type of player only because of his size. He was very productive throughout his career. There's no doubt that the talent's there, but he weighed in, I believe it was 154 pounds, which is incredibly small. He may have some difficulty at the next level against like press coverage against much, much, much bigger DBs, but he's lightning quick, even though it didn't show on his 40-yard dash. And his overall movement skills are worth taking the risk there in the 7th round.
And I'm not sure why Will Shepard would sign with the Bucs, but he did. He had a really good career. Jake Majors did not even go drafted. So the Bucs were able to sign him after the draft. And look, maybe part of this has to also do with Godwin's coming off an injury. But don't forget, McMillan was a monster at the end of the last season. and they had Evans, Godwin, and McMillan. So that could just be what it is, hey, we're going to get this guy. We don't know if Godwin can come back and be the guy, and he's good insurance there. I also like the signing they made with Shiloh Sanders for a guy that can play both positions back at deep safety, including he can hit. So I like Sanders. I think Sanders could make their team.
Okay. I think it's going to be interesting, only because it's going to be such a storyline. Is Desmond Watson, I think he's like 460 pounds or something crazy, the big defensive tackle from Florida, absolute massive human being. I really don't know. It's more of just seeing like, how is he going to be able to like stand, like how is he going to be able to handle like NFL offensive lineman is going to be the question mark, and our NFL offensive lineman going to be able to handle him. I'm going to guess it's going to be, I don't want to call it a disaster, but I don't know that he's going to make the roster, but it's just going to be interesting to watch him like actually compete against these big dudes like this.
That's what the practice squad's for. So, put him on the practice squad, get him in a training program. And if you can train the kid right, then you might have something. All right. And then we go with Tennessee, and I actually like Tennessee's draft. Of course, they get Cam Ward, so they got their quarterback. But I'm a big Oladejo fan. I fell in love with him a couple of months ago. He did not change my mind during Senior Bowl week, and I just thought he was going to be another one of these sleeper picks in round 5, and then he got picked in round 2. So I was like, all right, you go. So I think that's a really good player. Winston, to get him in round 3, a player that could have easily been a late first-round pick if he'd been healthy last year. Helm should make the team. Ayumanor is a player that we interviewed. Dave Syvertson did several months ago. Really talented player, and they got him in round 4. I like Slater in round 5. Harris could stick in round 6. Mullings, look, I'm a Michigan fan, but I don't think Mullings is an NFL running back. But maybe he can make the team somehow. What did you think about Tennessee's draft?
I thought it was interesting. Same as you. Kevin Winston at pick 82 is great value for a player that may have been in the first or second round conversation, or at top of the second round conversation, had he not gotten hurt last year. One of my favorite safeties in the entire draft. Gunnar Helm, very reliable tight end. I know that they have a history of drafting tight ends in the 4th round. I don't know why that is. And he's going to be another one of them, but I do think he's going to be a guy that could step up and take significant snaps for him this coming season. Iomanor out of Stanford is a really, really fun player to watch. As a comp pick in the 4th round is incredible value. Go watch the Colorado-Stanford game in 2023. I know this was a year ago. It's one of the most fun college football games that I think I've ever watched, and he was an absolute standout in that game. He certainly has some inconsistencies on tape. He's not going to put up that performance every single game, but that is a fun game to go back and watch.
And then speaking of the 4.81 guy, that's Restrepo. I couldn't believe that time when I saw it. I just absolutely couldn't believe it. And then I still didn't think he wouldn't be I still would have thought he would have been drafted. I mean, are you really just going to throw away all that production? He's got one of the best hands in college football because of 140 time. So, hey, good for Tennessee.
You're matching him up with Cam Ward too. So you're putting Cam Ward with his number 1 college receiver there in Tennessee. So he could be a
great point.
Roster.
Perfect point. That might be exactly why they made that deal. All right, Washington will round it out, but sort of like Minnesota, nothing to write home about because they only had 5 picks, but all 5 players are okay. I mean, Connerly was a nice pick. He could be a day 1 starter. So can Trey Amos, getting him in the 2nd round. Lane's another receiver. He's got talent. We'll see if he can stick. I think there were better options. And then look, Medrano was a nice player. He should, I see no reason why he won't make the team in some capacity. And Krosky Merritt, look, he didn't play last year, but he sure looked good in the East-West game. So that's somebody to keep an eye on in the back of the unit. So again, not a star-studded group of players, but what'd you think?
The clip I've seen 100, if not more times this offseason is the one clip at the Senior Bowl where Mike Green runs through Josh Connerly. And I feel like that's the picture that people get in their head when they think of Josh Connerly. He's such a better player than that. Is one bad rep, and he's kind of got defined on it this offseason. If he doesn't end up starting for the Commanders at right tackle this year, if he's not able to beat out Brandon Coleman, then he's going to be a nice little development piece that they can rely on to start either next year, whenever Laramie Tunsil retires, whatever it may be.
All right. I think we handled that pretty well. Went a little bit longer than we wanted to, but hey, there were 32 teams to cover. We wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of input for every one of our teams. And look, don't forget that John and Dave are definitely going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks with their own grading system, whatever they want to put together to talk about specific drafts, players, sleepers, all that kind of stuff. They've got a lot of research ahead of them. What are you going to be working on?
I'm going to be taking a big rest for this next probably month and a half up until probably the middle of June, and then get right back to it with 2026 prospects.
Yeah, that's the thing. At some point in the next couple of months, we got to get that. We got to get out that early top 32 for 2026. So anyway, Hayden, appreciate it. Also want to remind everybody, if you still have not ordered the draft guide, you can check ourlads.com out for the PDF version, and you can have it in your inbox right away. So just keep that in mind. It's something that you do not have to wait for, especially because I'm not even sure if we have any more draft guides available. If we do, then you can find out, and it'll be mailed to you as soon as possible. Check it out at ourlads.com. And don't forget, we're going to have tons of videos coming out here in the next few months, especially once we get an opportunity to check things out with the mini camps, rookie camps. And then this is not this version. Let me see if I have it right here. Here is last year's version of the draft review guide. This is what we'll be working on. So I've got about 10 teams or so I'm responsible for. So I'm going to have a lot of interviews. Matter of fact, I've already booked an interview, a Cowboy interview, a Carolina interview, and I forget the other one. But I've already got interviews lined up with a lot of insiders and analysts for specific teams that you want to check out here to find out more about. Especially these guys know what they're talking about from their own teams. They see these teams play. They know everything that's going on with them more than we do. So this will give us an opportunity to get more insight on those players and the drafts for teams. So another reason to stick with us here on the Our Lads Football YouTube channel. So for Hayden, Russell, and Greg DePalma, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.